Hi, I'm Casey Treat. 35 years ago, I was an addict with no hope and no future. It was then that I realized a simple truth that changed my life forever. The truth is, you can change. Whatever the circumstance, you can make choices that change your life forever. Join me on this journey of change as we examine living in our world and finding out what it means to truly be successful.
Coming up on today's program.
But I think if you aren't careful, even women are limited communicators.
Sure.
They're not opening up about the essential things in their lives that the husband would want to find out. You know, if you've had a full day and your husband is sitting with you and wants to find out how your day was, how that made you feel, and you just gloss over those feelings, that's limited communication. And that's you detaching from the other person. I think communication is very important for that communion, the intimacy that you have with the other person. And that requires transparency to have with that person. So I think that's a great lesson that you guys have modeled, that you've taught.
So good to have you with us today. My name's Casey Treat. We're going to have some fun talking about things that make life work better. You know, when we follow God's plan, study the Bible, and live the Word, things work better. A lot of people think it's a myth, or it's just old, or it's just religion. The fact is, it's very practical and very powerful. The things we're talking about today are going to make your life work better. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about how to move on, how to forgive, how to release things so we can move to our future. Do you know the one thing that's keeping most people from a better future? Hanging on to their past. Yeah, they get stuck to it. So we're going to find out how God will move us forward. Remember CaseyTreat.com? Lots of fun materials right there for you. We want to help you move into God's blessing. It's important that we talk about family matters because family matters. Because when families fail, society fails. We could say it like this: how can you and I help the social problems and the economic and governmental problems right here in our community? Here's how you do it. Love your wife. Love your husband. Love your children. Raise up a godly family. Lead those around you with a godly perspective. And today, I want to talk about what we're eating. Now, let me ask you like this. What recipe are you living by? Right? What recipe are you cooking your marriage and your family with? What are you following as you make your family life? Because if your recipe's not good, you're going to taste it after it's done and you're going to go, ooh, it's not what I was hoping for. Well, let's talk about some ingredients in God's family cake, right? You've heard of the wedding cake. Let's talk about the family cake. What are some ingredients in God's family cake? And it's nothing new. It's things you've heard me talk about, but I emphasize these things because they are so important. Communication. I'm going to keep emphasizing this because I don't think we're very good communicators. Most of us don't talk and communicate very well. Maybe we weren't trained. We're still learning. You know, someone said to me the other day, you should teach on sin more. And I said, no, because you're already good at that. But I do need to talk about communication more because most of us are not very good at communicating. And sometimes we assume women are better, but I found in my experience not always the case. Some of you ladies are pretty quiet too, or only communicate emotionally. So communication has got to be more than how we feel. Communication has to do with how we think, how we feel, and what we want, where we're going, what we're struggling with, what's hard for us. Communication has got to be giving and receiving. Sometimes communication is a question. I've tried to train myself and remind myself, ask more questions. Why do you think that way? Why do you feel that way? Why is this a big issue to you? You're always going to have disagreements. Couples are going to fight, but fight right. Don't fight mean. Don't be fighting, what did they say, below the belt. Don't fight with outside of the rules. How you fight may decide if your marriage wins or loses. I said it to you last week. You may think you're winning the argument, but the fact is you're losing your wife. So fight right. In other words, fight graciously. Fight with love. Disagree, but disagree with a desire to understand. You know, when you're around a person for some time, you learn the things that really kind of push their buttons, right? Is that how we say it? You can really push their buttons. You know the things that really hurt their feelings or make them mad, get them, they'll get a reaction. And you know what they are. Why would you say that? Knowing it's going to hurt, knowing it's a soft spot, knowing that it's going to really provoke more hurt in your relationship. Why would you go there? Well, because we're not fighting right. We're fighting for some kind of personal gratification. We're not fighting so our family wins. We're not fighting so our marriage wins. We're just in some kind of argument and emotional debate, which isn't going to cause anybody to win. So we have to communicate in such a way that we learn and we grow and we ask questions and we make sure that we're getting to victory and not to something else. If our words are grieving the Holy Spirit, then He's not able to keep our family flowing together. So it's important that we communicate graciously. The last ingredient I'll mention before we run out of time is forgiveness. You'll always need a good amount of forgiveness in every relationship because we're human. We get our feelings hurt, we get upset, we go through challenges. Forgiveness means I can let it go. I can leave it behind and I can reset. You ever had to do that with your phone? Go to that place in your settings where it says reset. Or maybe on your computer, you've had to reset it or reboot it, because that then refreshes and brings every program back to where it can function well. And every relationship needs a reset. That's forgiveness. In forgiveness, you don't change how you feel immediately. When you get hurt, you're still hurt after you forgive, but you've decided, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to leave it behind. And you know what? It's only a matter of time, and that feeling will change. When you forgive, you don't forget. Oh, no, I still remember what they said and what they did, but I've decided to let it go. And I'm not going to let it be a part of my life anymore. If you don't like it, why would you hang on to it? If it smells bad, why would you keep it in your life? Forgiveness releases it. Unforgiveness keeps it close. I don't want to keep things that are hurtful and mean and negative. No, I want to release it and let it go. Forgiveness is necessary in your family recipe. Otherwise, you're going to end up with destructive forces that tear apart your relationships. Maybe when I brought up that word forgiveness, you immediately thought of a person or a situation that's been hurtful and been hard for you. Let's just release that today. Let's let it go today. Let's decide, I'm going to use God's ingredients in my family cake. Father, I pray for our church that we can release those things that have hurt, that have torn us down, that have made us feel bad, that have hurt us deeply. We decide to forgive and to release. We decide, Lord, to let it go and not hold it in our lives. We can't change anyone else, Lord, but we can change ourselves. And today, we choose to forgive.
Did you know we have a YouTube channel? Did you know that we have the entire TV series available to watch on there? So if you missed the previous episode, head on over to our YouTube channel to catch up. We also have full weekly messages available for you to watch. To find our YouTube channel, go to caseytreat.com and click on the YouTube link. Or you can go directly to YouTube and find us by searching Christian Faith Center. Also, keep a lookout for a brand new series coming soon to YouTube. We're excited to connect with you through the comments section. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Well, I'm praying this teaching touches on areas that will help you and lift you in your family life. We all have to deal with relationships and family life, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. I have one of my best guests, my very special guest, Moses Masita here. Thanks for taking time with us, Mose.
Thanks for having me.
And so you've been married 6 years?
Yeah.
So you're a professional now,
Not
right?
even in the first quarter yet.
You're
right?
you're an expert, right?
Yeah.
And you guys have blended cultures and a lot of differences.
Yeah.
But making it work and communication has got to be a big part of that, huh?
Yeah, it's a big part. I mean, some of the ingredients that you're listing in this teaching really
Yeah.
essential to people that have come from different cultures now blending into that culture, right?
Yeah.
One, we speak different languages. Two, we were trained very differently on how to interact with one another. And then three, it's a whole new world out there that you need to make
World
sense
is
of.
changing.
So communication is essential, and I love how you set out the type of communications that we have. You know, you speak about people who communicate from an emotional perspective, people who have controlling communication,
Yeah.
others are competitive. And I can think like over the past 6 years, at any stage of our marriage, we've had all of those come
Right.
on, right? So I think balance is important.
Yeah. If you have that commitment, we're going to make it work. We're going to find a way. Then you figure out how to communicate, don't you? I know Wendy and I have spent years trying to understand each other, you know, trying to understand what she means, what she feels. And even after years and years, I'm not sure I understand, but you keep trying.
Yeah.
I think so often in our world today, it's like, forget it, give up, it's too hard, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you never get to that place of communion and communication.
Right. And I think it's important for younger couples even to be around some of the older couples and say, you know what, it's a lifelong thing of trying to figure this out. So it calls for patience, but it also calls for wanting to know the other person deeper. That requires a sense of, no, I will listen much deeper than I've ever done before. I will be more patient before I respond to that person. So that way we don't just listen to respond, right? We're listening to understand what the other person is saying. So I really think that's essential.
Yeah. People always ask, how do you know if this is the one? How do you know you're really in love? And to me, it's like, are you ready to do anything to make it work?
Right.
Because it's going to be hard. And you're going to have to do more than just listen so you can react. You're going to have to listen, as you say, because you really want to know that person.
And it's that love and sacrifice portion that you bring out in the teaching, which I like a lot, because part of the sacrifice then is that you have to say, man, I may have a certain preference in this moment here, but if it's not good for the other person, really my preference, although it matters, can be put in the back burner to ensure that, you know, our marriage goes forward. And so that's that thing where we fight for each other instead of against one another. So communication, I think, is everything, you know, like just sacrificing your own preferences for the other person.
When we were first married, Fred Price was influential in our life, and Fred is a pastor in Los Angeles. So he was saying to us in his teaching and privately,
you have to talk.
Right.
And if you don't like to talk, you still have to talk. I think sometimes we opt out because we say, well, I'm not really that way. It's not my personality. I'm quiet. Maybe men say that more than women. I'm not sure
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
a stereotype for men, isn't it? That we are this limited communicators.
Yeah.
But I think if you aren't careful, even women are limited communicators.
Sure.
They're not opening up about the essential things in their lives that the husband would want to find out. You know, if you've had a full day and your husband is sitting with you and wants to find out how your day was, how that made you feel, and you just gloss over those feelings, that's limited communication, and that's you detaching from the other person. I think communication is very important for that communion, the intimacy that you have with the other person, and that requires transparency to have with that person. So I think that's a great lesson that you guys have modeled, that you've taught, you know, and it's so great to even hear that you were taught that by a mentor in your life.
Yeah. And whether you feel like it or not, it's not the issue.
Right.
You just have to do it if you want your family to work.
Yeah.
You know, part of the communication is learning what the other person means, because sometimes we're hearing the words, but we're not hearing the meaning.
Right.
And that takes time, doesn't it? I mean, even after 6 years, I'm sure you're hearing things, oh, that's what she's been trying to take.
Yeah. I think scripture says, let no corrupt communication come out of your mouth, right? And sometimes when you listen to people, I think we tend to hear from an skewed sense. And then in our reactions, we say harsh things, mean things that we don't realize, man, they're robbing us of this moment where I could have understood what the other person meant. I just instantly went into this reaction that is now, you know, causing a rift in my relationship.
Yeah. Wendy and I've tried to make the habit of asking questions. So what I'm hearing you say is that what you mean?
Right.
Or what I think you mean is that what you're saying?
Right.
And asking questions, it goes a long ways rather than reacting with anger or frustration or whatever.
And I'm sure you found that it works in every category of life. You know, that's the relationships at work, it's the relationships at home. That's how you manage well, right? By asking questions and understanding exactly what people mean.
Yeah. So then in our ingredients, right, there's no one thing that's going to make it work. A lot of times people ask, what's the one thing you've done? Well, there's no answer to that. You got to do more than one thing.
Yeah.
But this other thing that we're talking about in the teaching today is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously if there's a crisis and a major problem, we need forgiveness. But really forgiveness is a daily thing, isn't it? And I kind of like that thought where Jesus said, when you pray, say, forgive us our debts. We forgive our debtors. It's almost like I'm planning every day to forgive no matter what comes up. I'm not going to wait for the disaster and then decide. I'm just going to plan today to be a forgiving person.
It's not the big stuff. It's the small aberrations. It's the, hey, you didn't wash the dishes. Hey, you didn't put that away. Hey, you didn't clean up your socks. It's those small things that I think we constantly have to open ourselves up for forgiveness to soften our hearts. Eventually, when the big things come, I think we've already had enough training with forgiveness to say, man, nothing is too big that we will not be able to handle.
Yeah, you make it part of your lifestyle.
Right.
You know, Jesus says in Matthew there, when we forgive, our Father forgives us. If we don't forgive, then our Father doesn't forgive us. I wonder how many families end up without the presence of God, without God's favor in their life, because they've just got so much frustration built up, disagreement, unforgiveness, right?
That is such a good thought.
And you just lose God's help because He can't get in past the hardness.
Soft hearts, right? Making sure that we deal with the calluses in our hearts as often as we can.
Well, I've lost track of time today, but we're going to continue on with this message. Well, let's talk about some questions that have been on your heart and mind. And we always love to respond to things that you're thinking about. And you can always connect with us at caseytreat.com. Go to the website, find the information line, share your story, testimony, questions. We're paying attention, and we'd love to respond to you. Or you can Instagram, Facebook, Twitter us. We're there. And we'll be quick to respond in the best way that we can. All right, so let's talk about some fun questions today that we've recently heard. First of all, I heard someone say that I should forgive my husband for things he said. Should I forgive him if he hasn't apologized to me? Yes, you should. Simple answer, yes, right? Of course, we forgive people not based on what they do, but because we choose to follow God. right? They may never apologize. They may never change, right? They may never repent. Someone who's hurt you, someone who's done something maybe even tragic, right? Abuse. So many of those tragic circumstances in our world, but we don't wait for them to change. We choose to forgive. Think of unforgiveness as chaining yourself to that person and that problem, right? So let's say your husband was abusive, he was harsh, he was mean, and you chain yourself to him and that problem. Now that issue is part of your marriage. But if you forgive, you let it go. You release it. You don't have to connect with it every day. The Bible said, whomsoever sins you forgive, they are forgiven. But whosoever sins you retain, they are retained. So if you stay angry and mad and unforgiving, and I'll never forget what you did to me, right? I've heard people say things like that. I'll never forget what you did to me. Okay, well, you may not forget, but if you could forgive, then you can be released from that control and from that emotion and from the negative influence. And hey, it may be the key for them to be released and not live in that negative way. So yeah, it's not about the other person. It's about you and I walking with God and keeping our spirit right with God. All right, here's another good question to talk about. I have a difficult time forgetting something someone did, but I did forgive them. Is that okay, or is it forgiveness only if you fully forget what was done? Well, actually, it's probably impossible to fully forget, right? I don't know of anyone who's going to forget the things that have happened to them, the tragedies and negative things that may have come along in life. So, no, forgiveness is not based on forgetting. In fact, I don't think anybody does forget. What we can do, though, is create new memories. Stay focused on different things. If you focus on the hurts and pains and problems of life, you're going to become a negative person. You're going to become bitter. You're going to become heavy. You're going to be down because you've put your mind on the wrong things. If you set your mind on things above, the Bible said, things of God, love and forgiveness and understanding and grace, well, God lifts your life to a new level. You begin to live in a new way. So forgetting is not so much about what we don't think about. It's about creating new memories and focusing on new things so we can move forward in life. And we'll never forget the negatives. We'll never forget the divorce, the disasters, the pain of certain things. But we can get so excited about other things in life that those memories get smaller and smaller, right? They begin to dim and are less important because we're focused on new things. And that's what God wants for us. God doesn't ask you to forgive because he's trying to somehow control you. God asks you to forgive because he's trying to lead you into a higher way of life. All right, here's one more question. Sometimes I get angry when talking to people because of their response. What do you mean sometimes? We all get angry when talking to people. Is anger sin? So the Bible literally says, right, Ephesians chapter 5, be angry, but don't sin. Okay, so there's a difference between being angry about something, being upset about something. God gets angry, right? You read through the Bible, God was upset with Israel very often. Jesus got angry, right? He gets upset when things aren't good and aren't right and not the way he wants them to be. So anger is a human emotion. We all have it. If you deny that you get upset about, you're either lying or you're really out of touch with reality, right? Everybody gets frustrated. The kids didn't obey. Marriage is hard. The boss is demanding something that's impossible. Financial stress makes us frustrated and sometimes angry. So that's life. But sin is when you let anger run your life and you become physically abusive, you lose control, you start drinking to try to deal with your emotional pain, you start using drugs to try to overcome the drama in your life, right? So we can be angry and not sin, or we can let anger take over our life and end up in sin. And the Bible said, be angry, but do not sin. So let's make sure anger doesn't control. Let's acknowledge emotions, but don't let emotions run your life. It's like with fear. I may be nervous or I may be scared, but I'm not going to let that control my decisions or run my life. I'm not going to let anger do that either. Well, go to CaseyTreat.com, connect with us today. Get today's teaching, amazing stuff. We're believing with you as you're moving into God's best.
Send your questions to Pastor Casey. Just email them to questions@CaseyTreat.com or connect with him on social media. Just search for Casey Treat. Be sure to watch future programs where Pastor Casey will answer your questions.
Well, I hope you've heard something today that will strengthen your family, lift up your vision, and help you to understand that family matters. You know, we have this teaching in its entirety on DVD or on CDs, and we're only sharing a few moments here on the program. So make sure you go to CaseyTreat.com and get that Family Matters series, or you can connect with us through the information on your screen. And remember, on the YouTube channel, Christian Faith YouTube channel, you'll be able to get so much more teaching, new materials coming out all the time. We just want to be a part of your walk with God, strengthen you, empower you, lift you above those negatives in your world, and help you to experience all that God has for us. So go to the Christian Faith YouTube, or we'll see you at CaseyTreat.com.
Did you know we have a YouTube channel? Did you know that we have the entire TV series available to watch on there? So if you missed a previous episode, head on over to our YouTube channel to catch up. We also have full weekly messages available for you to watch. To find our YouTube channel, go to CaseyTreat.com and click on the YouTube link. Or you can go directly to YouTube and find us by searching Christian Faith Center. Also, keep a lookout for a brand new series coming soon to YouTube. We're excited to connect with you through the comments section. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.